Hello and welcome back to the Facts of Facts, the only Facts of Life podcast, ready to drop some ideas in your cappuccino.
Yes, of course. The idea is cappuccino.
Delicious. Some places put butter in it now.
Oh yeah, that weird, horrible, what's it called? Like it's like nitro. No, it's that horrible coffee that makes you shit.
Bullet.
Bullet coffee.
Your poop comes out like bullets.
I think it comes out more like missiles, but whatever.
Well, I had it once and I was like, it just tastes like regular coffee. I'm not going to pay $7 at Era Juan to have an expensive coffee.
How often do you go to Era Juan?
I've been to Era Juan twice. Once with somebody to pick up their fancy groceries, and that's where I saw the sign for Bullet Coffee. And I was like, "What the hell is Bullet Coffee?" And then like the internet was like, "Bullet Coffee, butter in your coffee." I was like, "That's what it is. It's butter in your coffee." Then I went back to Era Juan to get one, and I was like, "This was not worth it."
I like that
It wasn't bad. I'm not saying like, "Hey, this is garbage." It was just like felt like coffee.
I like that you like saw it, thought about it, went home, heard about it more, didn't consult with the barista or whatever in the store, and then but we're thinking about it enough that you needed to figure this out.
Well, I think I saw Bullet Coffee.
I see.
And thought it was like, oh, it's like the brand. It's like, chock full of nuts or whatever.
Folgers.
Exactly. That's Bullet. That's their brand. It's a hipster brand. They make hipster. And then I learned more to it. Anyway, how did we get here? Oh, yeah, ideas in your cappuccino. Welcome back to the Facts of Facts. Sorry for that 2-minute interlude of nonsense. Me and Britt missed each other. She took a sabbatical, which shouldn't affect you guys because we go week to week. But we haven't done this for like 12 days as opposed to the 7 days that we normally take, and so I just miss her face.
The sabbatical. Sabbatical, which basically it feels as though Natalie took a sabbatical from her academic work in this episode.
And she took a sabbatical from being a decent human being as well.
Wow. This, and you warned me last week when we were doing, sorry, not last week, 12 days ago during my sabbatical.
I pulled the curtain back too much.
That this was going to be a Natalie heavy episode. You were like, I'm warning you. You're not going to like it. And I was like, do I ever like it? But this one was like, this one gave me a headache because not only because of Natalie's just insane behavior, but also mostly because Tootie was screaming every line.
Yeah, she was loud this week.
Single line was at 11.
She was mad. She was the only one still a high school student. She wasn't expecting this so quick.
I understand that. The hysteria.
So today's episode is called Advanced Placement.
Mm-hmm.
It is directed by Azad Khalata with his typical aplomb.
Well, I will say this. I wrote this down in my notes. I noticed so many close-ups. Like he was doing a lot less just wide takes and a lot more of like, I saw the hurt on Blair's face when she was called a skunk. I saw the rage in Joe's face when she was called a man. Like it was, the cuts were very close. There was a lot of Boots, like right in the camera.
Right in the camera. I felt like Boots' makeup wasn't as good as it has been previous episodes. It felt like she was underdone a little bit.
Well, neither was her phony mid-Atlantic accent. That has gone out the window.
I thought she was still doing her thing. No?
She was doing her thing. She was saying the words, which were all delightful, but she definitely lost the, that sort of that tight Katharine Hepburn kind of talking where it's like, oh, yes.
Maybe I'm used to later era Boots because that's how I remember her as this voice. But I don't remember this Katharine Hepburn Boots you're telling me about.
The Gamma one.
Yeah, no, I know which one it would have to be. But I remember her being, it was like heavy preppy accent. I felt like she was still delivering on that.
Well, maybe, I mean, I thought the accent had disappeared, but the
You thought
terminology,
the accent went whoosh.
certainly that one, whoosh, or ta. But I definitely thought that the language she was using was ridiculous and preppy and nonsense.
Fantastic.
And
That-
we're gonna get into something 3/4 of the way through this where my jaw dropped, which
Okay,
is
now you said that. I'm really excited because I got a text from Britt. I like I'm looking at the corner rather than looking at you because I'm talking to the audience. So I got a text from Britt, you guys, and in that text she said, uh, Boots just said something really horrific or problematic or something like that, and I was like, "Ooh, I can't wait!" And I watched it, knowing, all right, here comes Boots. It's got to be this scene. This is her only scene. Like duckling pate. I don't know what it is, so I'm very excited to find out why I am blind to this terrible thing that she said. And I apologize in advance, but I didn't catch it, but I looked for it.
no worries. We'll get into it.
Okay, I look forward to it. So this episode was written by Bob Young and Bob Meyer, affectionately known in the industry as the Bobs.
Oh, I thought it was the double bob.
Um, Actually, they were a comedic duo that was known as Meyer and Young.
Yeah, I know that name.
Do you? They did stand up. It says, but it says they did stand up as Meyer and Young, and so that makes me think that they did like a two-person stand up, which I'd be so all about.
I've
Like
seen
very Smothers Brothersy.
I've seen two people stand up.
Yeah, I don't see it too often these days.
There's those the twin brother. There are two twin brother acts that do it.
Wow, they must be
Smothers
so
Brothers.
popular that they canceled each other out, and I'm unaware of them both.
I've seen one of them at Largo.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is actually the debut gig for both Bobs in TV. They initially worked together for quite some time, but then they do veer off into different directions, come back together for a second, and then again they go. They got their start as Meyer and Young, and I still think they should have been called the Bobs. Um, but they end up doing 9 episodes of Facts of Life, which is quite a bit. When you think like a lot of these people that come in are like another one and done, another one and done. Oh, we got Jerry Mayer, okay, because he like created it. But these guys come here, come here,
Yeah.
join in season 5, and they stay until 86, doing 9 episodes total. A bunch of episodes in this season in particular. I think it's like 6, and then it's like 2 and 1, and but at that point they were off doing things like 227. They did 2 227s or 1 454. I did the math. Um, they did an episode of my beloved sitcom, The Charmings. Have we ever talked about The Charmings? Has The Charmings come up on this podcast?
No, I don't even.
Charmings is one of the first shows I ever bought on bootleg DVD, and it was a thing that I watched when I was like 7 and 8, and it was like the perfect sitcom. It was a fever dream for me as a child because I loved sitcoms. I loved multi-cameras. I also was well aware of Disney movies. So The Charmings is a multi-camera sitcom where Prince Charming and Snow White wake up in a suburban house in the middle of the 1980s with their wicked witch grandmother who tried to cast a spell on them and accidentally banished all of them and their children to like suburban Chicago. And they've got neighbors who think they're really weird, and like all their currency is bars of gold, and they have to like figure out how to convert it and stuff. And the queen has in her bedroom her magic mirror, who is a sassy, gay, black comic from I think the 70s. I forget who plays him. I wasn't planning on looking this up. Who like is like, girl, you've been a bitch to all your family. Such a weird show. There was a dwarf, like they called him a dwarf. He was a little person, but the in world of the Charmings.
Snow White. Yeah.
Yes, it was bizarre, and I loved it, and it got 2 seasons.
So what you're describing is you're describing it basically a mashup of Once Upon a Time, the
Yes.
show that was on ABC that ran for like 10 seasons,
Yes.
also a mashup of that with WandaVision.
Yes, but way ahead of its time.
Yeah.
Obviously. So they did an episode of that. I love that show. If anybody here can find it, I think there's some on YouTube. It's a real cult classic because it's so bizarre. They also managed to write 8 My Two Dads, and there are not that many My Two Dads, so that's impressive. And I like My Two Dads. It's almost always good.
That's so weird because I feel, and this is clearly some sort of like me misremembering my youth. I feel like My Two Dads was on from when I was 5 until I was 35.
I
Like
can tell you why. USA picked up My Two Dads along with Facts of Life. And so I don't know why you'd never have seen Facts of Life, but have seen My Two, or maybe you just didn't, you're just aware of it. USA reran the 4 seasons I think it had of My Two Dads nonstop all the time. And so it felt like it was never off the air.
So again, I will correct you and as to why that's incorrect for my life. It's because I grew up in a household that did not have cable. I basically had, 12 channels. I had a push button TV and, I grew up with like, unpainted wooden blocks to play with. So I would never have seen My Two Dads on the USA Network.
Okay, well then I guess I don't know what to say. Because for me, I like missed it on network. Like I watched it a little bit on network, but like through my teens, it was always on USA, and that's really how I got to know it so well.
Who was the girl?
Stacy Keenan.
I always want to say it's Stacy Keach.
Yes, me too. That's why I said it slowly.
That's a big old fat man.
Yes, I swear I've gotten them confused my whole life. Bob Young will go on to do Singer and Sons, The Torkelsons, Dinosaurs, Maybe This Time, Boy Meets World, Smart Guy, Nikki, Family Affair, and Melissa and Joey. Bob Meyer does Joe's Life, Me and the Boys, Roseanne. This is weird. He does a lot of things with people's names, like Joe's Life, Roseanne, The Gregory Hines Show, Damon, Sybil. He reunites with Bob Young on Nikki, which I actually liked Nikki. I thought that was a good show. A show called Abby, which I don't know.
Oh my God! It's like he created his entire career based on like he said to his like manager or agent. It was like, if it's not a human being's name, I don't want to work on it.
Check this out: Joe's Life, Roseanne, Gregory Hines, Damon, Sybil, Nikki, Abby, Rodney, Living with Fran, and then he comes to the pinnacle: Mike and Molly.
I feel like it's like he worked on a show called Britt, and I didn't know. It's like. Jesus.
He also did Happily Divorced, which the only reason it didn't have Fran in the title was because all of our other shows had Fran in the title for like 3 in a row. Anyway, we got 8 more episodes from the Bobs to go, and I didn't think this was a terrible one. I mean, I did think Natalie was terrible, but as an episode, I got some chuckles out of it, and I thought I really enjoyed. I'm just gonna say it right now. I really enjoyed when Bootsy walked in towards the end and Tootie walks right in front of the camera mocking her, and it's like almost blurry. She's like so close to the camera. It was something I enjoyed about that. And so kudos to Azad for keeping it fresh.
Yeah, that's like the first time you've ever praised Azad Khalata's directing, and it was basically a mistake.
It felt like a mistake. That's why I liked it. It was blurry. Anyway, we open in Edna's Edibles.
Of course. Where else would we open?
The living room. Those are really the options these days. But we open in Edna's Edibles just as Natalie bursts through the door beaming. She's with Mr. Parker.
I wrote down, oh God, why is he back?
This is his last episode.
I thought we'd vanquished him.
This is it. This is goodbye.
Maybe it's because of the way he speaks to young girls and women in general.
In women in general, yeah.
He should be in prison. He's basically like Harvey Weinsteining it up in this episode.
Yeah, for Strudel.
Yeah.
Anyway, she's got some reason. She needs him to announce her big news. She can't do it herself. I don't understand why. Would this ever be a thing in any scenario? It was like, oh, I got into a special program, so I'm bringing the headmaster to this restaurant I work at to tell my boss and coworkers.
Yeah.
Very strange. Anyway, she asks him to explain why he's here, but instead he quizzes Edna on the business. Is it making money? Is she happy there? And she is ecstatically.
Yeah.
He begs her to return to Eastland. She's like, fat chance, bro.
Yeah.
You're not even returning to Eastland. This is it for you. Then Natalie reiterates, seriously, tell them, Mr. Parker. And it feels like he's about to announce their engagement.
Yeah, it does. It feels weirdly off-putting.
It is like,
Why does she need him to do this?
I don't know. It's very, we have news.
Yeah,
It's so
like
weird.
having a baby.
Yeah. Anyway, he's, especially the way he sighs, it really was like I knocked her up. Tell him, Mr. Parker. Anyway, um, he says he wants to come down in person to announce something, but first he would like to order 6 croissants.
Yeah.
This is being drug out so much.
A dozen, 6 of one and half a dozen of another, to which Mr. Parker and Mrs. Garrett laugh for seemingly 90 seconds.
Yeah, really into that wordplay.
Which,
I kind of liked it, I will say.
but it was like the old folks, like that was such an old people joke that like the girls were like, what is happening? Why are you doing this? Just say a dozen and take the fucking thing and give us the news and leave. We hate you.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the audience just did not find that joke funny, but the writers were like, but it's such good wordplay.
But
that
it's not.
They're like, I've got it. We'll have the actors laugh at the joke. So it has to stay in because there's laugh even when you can't hear that the audience isn't finding this funny.
Fair enough. Yeah, that's true. I mean, to be honest, I think that there were a lot of, things and lines in this episode that acted like jokes, but actually were not.
And then there was everything that Boots said, which was just perfect, except for that one thing that I don't know yet. Anyway, Natalie is not laughing at all. This announcement is taking a lot longer than she or anyone anticipated. She should have just done this herself. He tries to give the backstory. His dream was to create a liaison between Eastland and Langley. Why the fuck are we drawing this out? She's like, fucking shut up and make the big announcement. And for some reason, he's taking orders for her. He's like, oh, sorry, yes.
Until finally, she screams at herself.
Yes. She finally interrupts him to explain she is getting to take an advanced placement Eastland course at Langley.
And then all the other women in this room, aside from Mr. Parker, start shrieking as though Michael Jackson, Prince, and the Beatles all showed up to play, Live Aid at once.
Jermaine Jackson and Pia Zadora showed up to perform their number one hit.
Their number one hit, Pee in My Cappuccino. I don't know. Whatever. But it's the weirdest thing. It's like, also, why, like, you get to take more school? It's like, this is, so my husband has always made this joke. So he was in a gifted child program.
Of course he was.
When he was a little kid. It's not like I wasn't, but the thing is that
I was too, guys. Just so you know, I'm looking over at the guys.
But the funny thing is that my husband makes the joke, which is like, so because I'm so good at school, you're rewarding me with more school? What the hell is this? I should be getting less school. I don't need this. And that's true.
Some people like school, and that's why they're so good at the advanced stuff.
Except for Natalie, who apparently sucks
at everything. All things that Natalie could do, she sucked at. The things she put effort into, she sucked at. The things she didn't put effort into, she sucked at.
Yeah.
Being a good person, she sucked at. But anyway, Nat hasn't picked what classes she's going to take yet.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Mr. Parker, by the way, he thinks this is a really, really a big buoy for school donations. Like, people are going to be, did you hear Natalie's taking a class at Langley? Let's double our donation to $2 million.
It was perplexing.
3 of my girls at the school.
It's though, that's the thing, is that it's like, I get that if he can promote Eastland as like a feeder school to a place as prestigious as Langley, I guess that makes sense. But like, it's not really a feeder school if like a couple of your students are taking one extra class.
One of your students is taking one extra class.
Yeah.
And it's the one that faked an abortion in the paper that everybody knows about.
So yeah, exactly.
The worst one you could pick.
So that's the other thing, is that so the other big conflict here that happens, it has to do with the newspapers, the Eastlander and the Langley Gazette, or whatever the fuck it's called.
I think it's the Weekly Langlier.
Langley.
The Langleyan? I have it in my notes.
Lanyard? The lanyard?
Yes, the lanyard.
Anyway, but so that's the other thing that I wrote down. I was like, Natalie lost her job as a journalist. She's not allowed to work at the newspaper. That happened.
She got it back off camera, and we have never discussed why or how. But it is clear that she got it back.
So it
must have happened when Blair got sprayed by that skunk.
Which, again, why can't we see shit like that happen on screen?
Yes. It's true. And also, if she was called Pepe Le Pew for months, I feel like we would have known. Anyway, so Nat hasn't picked what class she's going to take. She's going to confer with her freshman advisors, Blair and Joe, who are delighted at this news for no reason. And then Mrs. Garrett shits on them for saying she's sure that they'll be happy to share all that they've learned from their weeks of experience.
I know, it was so weird. I was like, the other thing about this that I was thinking is that, so this episode, while it wasn't poorly written and did have a lot of like, you know, I'd say
sprightly dialogue, momentum. Sure.
It felt incredibly unpleasant and negative. Like everyone was shitting on one another, negging one another, and just being strangely cruel. But like that's kind of how the facts of life is. This
episode in particular, though, like I always have that. I don't normally I go into episodes being like, oh, I have such warm feelings for this one, and then you point out how horrible they are to each other. But this is one where whenever I see that this one's on, I'm like, oh, this is the one where Natalie fucks everything up and everybody hates her. So like I genuinely have that feeling from this episode.
And not only that, so not only the fact that Natalie fucks everything up, she screws up her relationship with her friends, she screws up her job, she starts failing out of her classes, she can't write jokes anymore, she's basically can't write, she's spending all of her money at the Langley bookstore and joining all these, you know, language clubs of languages that she can't speak. And then she kind of has to like, you know, eat crow at the end. And then they all laugh at her.
Well, we'll get there. You're going right to the money shot.
Which we don't even see.
We will get there. Anyway, so imagine these girls know a lot more about bratwurst and horseradish mustard than they do about Langley, though. So I think Mrs. Garrett's probably right. Like, what are they going to do?
So Mrs. Garrett basically just exits stage right.
She takes Mr. Parker on what she calls a cook's tour of the house. Is that a thing?
He clearly has never cooked a day in his life. He always needs to rely on Mrs. Garrett. So, like, why wouldn't she just say a tour of the house? Like, what is she going to do? Show him her industrial kitchen?
And they don't go the kitchen way. They go the living room way.
House tour. Anyway, so then Natalie, very like heavy breathing, unfurls her fucking, you know, class
catalog.
Course catalog, and the girls pour over it as though they are selecting a high-end male escort to take her V card. Like they're like obsessed with this. And it's like she's taking one class. Also, why do they need to confer with her about this?
Nobody does, especially since it's one class. If it's like, hey, I'm going to be building a schedule and I want to know like what's a convenient plan and can I take this class in a location sure, I would get that. But this is like, I got one class, I'm going to be traveling to it and back from it.
Or like building a major, being like, okay, so you should take English 101, then you should probably take, you know, modern drama, which is what she settles on. And, oh, you're going to do a history minor? Take American History 101. Well, it's just like, but this one is...
This is one class. It could be anything from arts. So what is the animals in art is one of the options.
Yeah.
And then there's the genius of Norman Mailer, taught by Norman Mailer. I feel like that's the home run. Like Natalie was right to be like that one, and or Tootie said that one. But yeah, but Natalie was like, yeah. And honestly, Natalie's the writer. I think Tootie was looking out for her friends. I thought that was a good suggestion.
Not only that, so here's the thing. So Norman Mailer obviously was a incredibly well-known novelist. He's won all these awards, but he was also a very famous journalist. What does Natalie want to do? Be a journalist. And
Yep.
if it's being taught by the man himself, that's a huge opportunity.
Absolutely. It's a no brainer. Plus, the fact that it's at 8 a.m., which seems to bother Blair, and that's why it gets nixed, that's great. You do it, you've got the whole day off. You're like, oh no, sorry, class ran long. I'm not going back to Eastland today. I'm just going to be at the quad.
Yeah. Yeah.
But no, no.
Anyway, let me just say a couple things about Norman Mailer. So first of all, it's hilarious that and I believe that he's actually come up before on Facts of Life because I distinctly recall doing research about him before, which of stuff that I just basically was like, oh yeah, I know everything about him. But it's weird that these guys chose Norman Mailer as like a professor that should be teaching in school because he very famously stabbed his wife and she almost.
Yes.
So that's like, it's like, yeah, of course. Let's send this 16-year-old girl in to learn from this man.
Well, I mean, he was just trying to get the cancer out.
That's what he famously said.
Yes.
That was because he was jealous of her and hated her. So it was
cancer.
Answer. No, it was, he was like, they were having a lover's quarrel.
Oh.
Anyway, so the great thing about Norman Mailer is that he also, and great, I mean that in scare quotes, is that he was married 6 times, had nine children, right? But which is amazing to me because it's like the second woman that he was married to is the one he stabbed.
Mm-hmm. And then got several more.
How managed to have 4 more wives? What kind of magic dick did he have?
People, it's just crazy. It's like I break somebody's heart and I'm like, I can't talk to another band for years. Like, you stab somebody, you get married again. It's just, I don't know.
No,
I don't know. It must have been a really magic dick. It must have worked on him because he felt great about himself.
He did. He also famously ran for mayor of New York in 1969. But also his third wife is a woman that I've met. She's passed on now. Her name is Lady Jean Campbell. She was a British journalist and heiress. They had a kid together who I think is an actress now. But I think it was just because of how, outgoing and charming my mom was, where she met this woman at some, probably a literary party of some sort, and then befriended her. And this woman was, obviously not scared of anything because she married Norman Mailer after he had stabbed the wife before her. Anyway, so she invited me and my mom over to eat pea soup, split pea soup, and play Scrabble. I played Scrabble with Norman Mailer's ex-wife.
I mean, did you win?
No, I was so bad.
How old were you?
I would say 11 or 12.
Oh, well then, I think it's shitty that they didn't let you win.
My mom, was a very competitive Scrabble player. She put down a triple word score and got all of her tiles out on xylophone.
Whoa.
Which basically means that she has won because that's like 9,000 points. Anyway,
right.
So memorable that I've never forgotten the fact that I met this very important British journalist and heiress, but also the fact that my mom won with xylophone.
That is impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so Blair rejects this class.
Oh, but wait, I've got a little bit more on Norman Mailer. One, he guest starred as himself on Gilmore Girls.
I didn't know. I must have seen it because I've seen
and his son.
What? He and
He
his
and his son.
oh, wow.
Yes. Also, he headbutted Gore Vidal backstage at the Dick Cavett show because of a bad review that was written about him.
Yeah, well, so that's a very famous situation that is easily available on YouTube to watch Dick Cavett, Norman Mailer, and Gore Vidal have this like scrum on stage. It's just this constant shitty insults just at one another. And like Norman Mailer admitted like later that he was like very drunk at the time, but like also he said something insulting to Dick Cavett, being like, just ask me the questions on your fucking cards and get over with it or whatever. And then Dick Cavett's like, how about if I fold this card into 5 pieces and shove it up your ass? It was just this chaos of like live TV. So if anyone,
I will look for that.
yeah.
The same year that this episode aired, Norman Mailer engaged in an argument with 2 New York socialites that resulted in a living room boxing match where he was knocked out cold.
Yes.
That's a good one. And also, he wrote a phony biography on Marilyn Monroe, which is his most famous or second most famous book. And yeah,
Not his second most famous book, but okay.
I mean, that's what, or I guess, a most successful book.
Possibly. I think his most famous is, the Naked and the Dead, which is
Yes, but apparently the Marilyn Monroe book was the fastest selling book of his career, but it didn't end up outselling his first book. But it is his second most successful in terms of money.
he was also going to write a pornographic film for someone famous, and I can't remember who that was. And I think during some sort of working meeting, he was like, I always knew I was going to do a porny. That's how he referred to it.
A porny. I love that. Anyway, Blair nixes the idea of Norman Mailer's masturbatory ego stroking class because it's at 8 a.m. So Nat finds an 11 a.m. class called Animals in Art. That meets in Vestige Hall, so she'd have to leave 10 minutes early just to make it to class. It doesn't seem like the biggest problem, but also doesn't really seem worth it for Animals in Art. And Joe suggests looking for a class that meets in the living room for maximum convenience, which I enjoyed.
Well, I also just think that at this point, they're making the choice of what she should be taking based on time and geography.
Yeah, 100%.
Which is
Blair is.
Which is how you should determine most things in your life. How far away is it? When do I need to be there? I'm not coming.
That's 100% how I do determine things.
Because that's how it is in Los Angeles. It's like, wait, where is it? Santa Monica, 9 a.m.? I'm not coming.
They eventually settle on a class at McClendon Hall at noon. The class is modern drama. Doesn't seem to matter much, but Natalie, who's suddenly confronted with this important question, what do I wear?
Yeah.
Joe's like, clothes.
Yeah.
And Nat's like, clothes. Okay, I have those.
So also, one thing that I will point out is that, especially in this season, because I think we're in this midst of sort of like a growing pain between like the younger girls becoming older and the other getting into college and everything, and they have college life and etc. Natudes are obsessed with wearing the right clothes.
Well, it's the 80s, and it was very confusing to know what the right clothes were because what you'd see on TV was insane and unavailable to the mass public. And so, what do you wear?
Oh, you mean that? Are you saying that this show is setting an example for the right clothes to wear, or the wrong ones?
Well, I'm saying this is probably the most accurate wardrobe show for any TV show about girls in the 80s. I feel like they dressed them so badly that you have to believe that these are just these individual people's terrible choices without somebody giving them, something better to wear. That you just don't imagine they have a whole wardrobe room to pick out something nice to wear for being on TV.
In the second half of this episode, Judy is wearing some overalls that are unbearably unflattering.
They really do give her like a tummy.
It gave her a gunt. Like it was just like this really weird upper fupa type situation. Like
and big, like a big one, like a barrel fupa.
it was like, so the thing is that it's like, also like, you know, this is, and we discussed this
It was
before.
like she had her script rolled up in there and she forgot to take it out for the shoot. Because I don't believe that that's her body.
No, but see, that's the thing is that like, and we've discussed this in the past, that so this was like kind of a problematic season for dressing Kim Fields, because during the between we're in season 5, right?
Mm-hmm.
Between season 4 and season 5, Kim Fields just, you know, went through puberty and had these rather big juicy naturals, right? Which, you know, that's fine. Good. I applaud that. I've got those myself. I think hers are a little bit more juicy. But if you have like a 14-year-old who's got enormous knockers, don't put her in overalls that make her look as though she's like a butt plug. Like it's like in this.
I truly didn't see butt plug coming.
Yeah, that's what she said.
So we're in a new scene now. We're back in the Langley common room, which seems to have gotten a bit of an upgrade since we were last there.
I suppose. I mean, it just seemed as though it was sort of more paint. It had gotten a fresh paint job, more people, more extras. But, you know, our good pal Guy is there.
So it was our good pal Alicia, who had like 2 lines last time.
Is that who that was?
Mm-hmm.
I just wrote down horrible blonde perm.
Yes, horrible blonde perm is Alicia. This is her 2nd episode. She's the lady who went on to become a TV editor.
Yeah.
Yes. And they even reference her by name in this episode because Natalie was out with Boots and Alicia getting coffee.
Of course, yeah.
And I was like, oh, look at Alicia getting some play. Anyway, we are back at the Langley common room, and Guy is back as well, as you said.
Yeah.
Guy Reynolds is his full name. He now gets a last name. I don't know where it came from.
He probably wrote that down himself.
Well, he is going to get 6 episodes total, apparently. And I honestly had no idea.
He evaporated from your mind.
I just think I honestly was like, oh, there's all these like handsome, blonde, tall men at Langley, and I didn't realize they were all guys.
I'll say this. He clearly is not using the conditioner that Blair lent him.
It's true.
His hair looked like straw.
It did. So it's what's weird about Guy or David Tiffin is that he does this 6 episodes. He does a Hollywood Hot Tub sequel, and then he does a 90210 where he plays potential lifeguard. Anyway, and then he took a nearly 30-year sabbatical, much more than our 12-day one, from acting. And now he's back. He had 5 credits in 2020 during the pandemic. And this year, he's in a film called Beyond Adversity, and he's also on the Amazon Prime TV show Them.
What?
I know. Like he had new credits since the last time we did an episode with him in it. So I thought that it was worth bringing that up. Way to go, Guy.
Congrats, Guy.
Yeah. Guy seems so weirdly invested in the girls. He's like so excited to call them over, and he's particularly curious about how Natalie did on that checkoff paper. Why the fuck do you care, Guy?
Yeah, I actually thought that the Chekhov paper was going to be like Chekhov's gun. I thought that was going to come back and bite Natalie in the ass, but no. Never meant.
Too clever for Facts of Life. But she got an A with several pluses that Joe dives in to add on to. So she's crushing it at Langley. That's the point we're supposed to be taking.
Of course, but also Blair negs her and says, just, you know, to think of this as this was the same girl who showed up first day of school with her Return of the Jedi notebook, which sounds dope. I
knew you because I wrote that in my notes. I was like, I bet Britt wants one of those. But I think that was mainly just to give us the context of a time jump.
Yeah, because it's now 3 weeks later. And Natalie says,
Oh, that was 3 weeks ago. I was so young then.
Yes, she's so much wiser, except for with her fashion choices. But then Alicia, rather, reads from the Daily Langlian. That's what it is called. Daily. They make this fucking paper every day.
that is incredible to me. So we're not, I've never heard of that from a college, but
Who would have?
But when I was in high school, we had a school newspaper, and we had a school newspaper when I was in high school, we had a school newspaper as well as in college. But it was like a huge grind because they came out every week, which was like kind of an incredibly ambitious thing for students to do while also doing all the other shit you need to do when you're in high school and college.
Yeah, I think my high school paper came out once per quarter. We got 4 issues.
So the news was always late. But like, that's such a weird thing to be like, the Daily Langlian. Also, what a bizarre name.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I love the fact that, what's her name, Alicia?
Mm-hmm.
So she's reading this, and it's like her eyes fall out of her head when she reads the sports report.
She's so sad.
She's so upset. It's as though she lost money on a bet.
Yes. She says the quote is, "Soccer team loses again."
And Natalie goes, I was at that match. It was fucking nuts. It was awesome. I loved every second. And then
she's like, "What's so great about losing 13-0?" This is pretty bad.
I think out of the two of us, I'm more of a sports fan. And I've probably, because, I've spent time in the UK, and, soccer/football is very big there.
Oh.
So I've seen my fair share of soccer matches. 13-0 is like the kind of score that, like, the people who scored 13 goals killed the entire team, or the other team just didn't show up and they just kept kicking the ball into the net.
We just didn't have a goalie this match, so
yeah, sorry.
Alicia wants to know what's so great about losing 13-0. Any clue, Britt?
It's because Natalie's such a fucking horn dog, and she can see all their meaty thighs.
Yes, she explains the guys wear shorts. I thought it was maybe because the dick sometimes dangles outside the leg of the shorts, because it's the 80s. Those were some short shorts. I imagine there was some quality dick slips back then.
Probably quality dick slips. That reminds me of, I was watching, when I was in high school, speaking of high school, I was watching Road Rules. Did you ever watch Road Rules on MTV?
No.
Do you know what it is?
Yeah.
Conceptually?
Yeah.
Teams compete and do dumb stunts, like obstacle courses and shit, but also they're on the road, and they're basically it's just very hot people, hooking up and getting mad at one another.
Absolutely.
Anyway, there was this one guy who was on the show must have been like the late 90s, who was incredibly cute. But in the 90s, short shorts were not popular, right? That's more of a cargo short era.
Yes.
Or a Janko jean era, to be perfectly frank.
Sure.
And he's wearing these tiny little shorts, and because he's nervous because if he has to do some obstacle course or something, he duct tapes his legs to his tiny shorts, and he says, "Just don't want my dude falling out," which I've never forgotten. Just don't want my dude falling out.
Well, let your dude fall out. It's fine. It's better than having duct tape on your legs.
Natalie would have been psyched.
Yeah, that would have been the best day of Natalie's life. Everybody laughs because they love Natalie's unabashed horniness.
Yeah.
It's just what this college needs. Seems like Natalie's fitting in. And then to remind us that not all guest cast needs to be wooden and unfunny, my beloved Boots St. Clair comes in.
Yes.
Jamie Gertz. She hears some serious chuckling and decides this is the place she wants to be.
I mean, if I heard serious chuckling, I think I would walk the other way.
Well, not Boots. Nat's attracting the A-listers, and Bootsy's like,
That's true.
Mind if I mix?
Yeah. Honestly, every time Jamie Gertz shows up, she acts circles around everyone.
Yeah.
She chews the scenery. It's like watching Al Pacino. She's so much better.
I agree. I truly think that every time she leaves, I expect the audience to applaud like it's Married with Children or something.
Yeah.
Because she really, every time she crushes it. And like when she ended this episode with whoosh, it was heaven. Heaven. Yep. Also, there's like notable quotes on IMDb, and there's only one for this episode, and it is whoosh.
Notable quote, whoosh.
Mm-hmm. And Joe's an asshole, and she says, all in favor of Boots joining, say get lost. You know what you get lost, Joe? That attitude. At least she didn't, tell her to go kill herself, so I guess
she does threaten Natalie with death in this episode later.
No, two people do, Mrs. Garrett and I think Blair. I don't think it's Joe.
Joe does, and she's like, do you want me to kill her? And then later says, no, can you just punch her in the face?
Yes, that is true. Mrs. Garrett also, someone's gonna die.
I was like, oh my God, are we back in the Halloween episode?
I wish. But I'm glad I'm not in that taco anymore. Anyway, Boots asks Nat to get her a chair and then sits in hers and proceeds to say in a very complicated way that the Gamma Gamma house is getting redone. I couldn't even keep up with it. It was so complicated the way she was saying it.
From top to bottom, it's like roof to,
Yeah, whatever, Boots. We also learned that Boots isn't done trying to persuade Blair to join the Gammas, but Blair's quite happy where she is, although why, I just do not know. Just you want to live with Natalie and Tootie above a kitchen?
With Joe as well?
I mean, Joe's her girlfriend.
Yeah.
Boots asks little Natalie how she manages to live a double life, and Natalie explains that she has on her Eastland uniform under her cool college clothes. And for some reason, this makes Boots point at her head from the farthest, highest possible distance, like...
Yeah.
Light bulb!
Yeah.
So what's her light bulb?
Let me just go back for a second and so first of all, to be perfectly frank, it does look as though Natalie is wearing a full set of clothing underneath what she's wearing in this scene.
I agree. I didn't want to be mean, but yes, it did look like she was bundled up.
We're not being mean. The costume designer was being mean. But also, that's such a Joey Tribbiani move. It was like, I'm going to wear all my clothes at all times. He was wearing Chandler's clothes.
Yeah. Maybe she was doing some deep lunges outside the guy's track.
To be
watching their shorts.
I feel like Natalie does a lot of deep lunges.
Oh, yeah. Deep lunches. She wants Natalie, Bootsy wants Natalie to write a story about her experience for the Daily Langlian.
Yeah.
For some reason, they have Alicia go, good idea.
So at that point, I was like, is Boots pitching this to this bad blonde perm lady? Is she responsible for the newspaper? No, she was just there to say, I'd read that. Yes, something irrelevant to her character.
Yeah, no, it confused me too. At first, I thought she was like, oh, is Alicia the gateway to the paper? And then, no, she's not.
Boots explains she's a VIP on campus, and also that the features editor is a Gamma Gamma sister. And
just like everybody else who's worth a shit.
Yes.
Then Boots drops a certain moi, which I enjoyed. Basically saying she's great. She's certain the editor will be enchanted by her adolescent's eye view, and she'll let her write the piece. Natalie says Boots is fantastic, and Boots is like, "Oh, it's been said before." I love Jamie Gertz on the show so much. She heads off to drop her ideas into the woman's cappuccino after dinner.
Yeah, ta.
We got Pac-Man ta.
I feel like I'm watching a Guillermo del Toro movie. Her this nonsense with the eyes and the hands. But it's why didn't they make a spin-off with just Boots?
So that's what it should be called, Just Boots.
Just Boots.
I'd watch the fuck out of that.
It's like, oh, I'm gonna wear some penny loafers.
I would love it. I would love it. So many backdoor pilots, and none of them were a Bootsy one. Just a side note.
Yes.
We got a message from a lovely.
Oh.
I'll leave it anonymous, but thank you. Where they sent us a link to podcast with Pamela Adlon, where she talks about her experience with the show. And one of the things that she said that was interesting, although she got literally every date wrong, she was like, I think I was on the second to last season of the show, and I was like, Britt wishes. But one of the things she said was that there was going to be like, remember the episode of that was at the garage with Joe's cousin?
Yeah, I thought that was going to be her.
That was supposed to be her. And
yeah.
She was going to be Joe's cousin, but then they came up with this new direction. And so that was kind of interesting.
And made a bad decision, because that might have actually made that pilot happen.
Possible. I don't think Pamela Adlon had the pull she has now, but.
Well, of course not. But who plays? But there was someone. I thought there was someone famous who played the uncle. But again,
regardless, that episode was not good. I think that the script is the reason that show didn't go. But anyway, Joe is nauseous after Boots leaves, which is insane because she was amazing. Mm-hmm. But Natalie agrees with me and thinks that Boots and the whole thing is great. She's basically syndicated now.
Well, because she's like,
oh, great, I get to write for the Eastlander and also the Lanyard Gazette or whatever, Lanyard. And then she's like, that's basically like being syndicated. And I was just like, Natalie, get a fucking dictionary. You're a writer. That's not what that is.
It's not at all what it is, but it's like it. You're in more than one paper, so I get it a little bit. But Blair's worried.
Hold on. I will say this. So is that two TV writers should very well know what syndication means.
Well, this was their first episode of their first gig. So maybe they're just going to find out. But Blair is worried that Natalie won't be able to handle all of her commitments and do the senior spoof. Why do you even care about the senior spoof, Blair?
She doesn't. Yeah, she's not like she's gonna go. And also, are we ever gonna see the senior spoof?
Of course not.
Why should
life rules?
Also, it would have been so fun to see that last season.
Yeah. I'm sure that's what the writers thought when the Bobs came up with the idea for senior spoof. They were like, when we were Meyer and Young, we did senior spoofs all the time. And everybody's like, oh, it's such a good idea. Why didn't we do it last year? Anyway, but it would be good to see Tootie do one of Natalie next year. And in fact, I kind of vaguely think that the idea of senior spoof does come back some way, but maybe I'm wrong.
Anyway, so that basically just tees up the opportunity for Blair or Natalie to explain what the senior spoof is.
Oh yeah, guys, like, what's the senior spoof?
Sounds so cool.
It's when underclassmen roast the seniors. Nat went to town on Blair and Joe last year. Guy and Alicia need to know what was said. Everything. And Nat says there was so much juicy stuff. But then she starts with the time Blair was sprayed by a skunk. What the fuck? That's not juicy at all. That's just like, okay. That's like maybe more for animals in art class as an anecdote.
True. Also, when Blair is, expressing, concern over something that she's not involved in, the senior spoof, and shouldn't care about anymore, Natalie's like, she's like, well, won't you not be able to write those sketches? And she's like,
whatever. It's just a piece of cake.
And I was like, yeah, bedroom cake. Bedroom.
I was surprised that Natalie started with the time Blair was sprayed by a skunk and not the time that Blair accidentally dated a mentally challenged boy and then tried to change him. That would have been juicier. If we're going juicy.
Way juicier. But also, I understand the impulse as a young person who's trying to fit in with people who are older than you, who are like, ooh, dish the dirt, like dish some goss on these. But like, deeply throwing your friends under the bus like this, like, like this is Natalie's dumb attention-seeking bullshit.
Yeah, she even kind of slut shames Blair when she explains she was at the Christmas dance making out with a boy in the woods, which was forbidden. So she got what she deserved. And then
Yeah.
2 months later, they called her Pepe Le Pew, and we missed all of it.
Yeah.
That sounds like a great Christmas episode.
Because, and the implication is that she's a slut who deserves it, and her pussy's dirty.
Yes. And then Natalie also tells the story of Joe going to Stone Military Academy and everybody thinking she had a dick there and one of them trying to set her up with her sister.
And
His sister.
again, so that was my first laugh because I was like, it was a 2021 laugh, not a 1983 laugh. Like, that was a meta, oh, wow, yeah, I guess she is pretty, quote, dykey. But like, geez, I can't believe that they would say that because it's clear that, Joe is obviously a very attractive young woman, but
also, yeah, no, it doesn't make sense. There's even a callback later to it, and it makes less sense in the callback. But then Nat tries to take over our job. She recaps the episode where Joe tried to become a nun and punched Blair, which took us almost 3 hours. It took Natalie 5 fucking seconds.
Which I'm jealous of Natalie for.
I bet you are. Everybody cracks up at this one as we fade further into the future.
Yes.
Yeah, we're now at Edna's Edibles, and Natalie is ignoring customers and shouting for Tootie to take care of them.
I think at this point, do we ever leave Edna's Edibles again? Oh, yeah.
We go into the living room.
At the last scene. Yeah. But we're just in Edna's Edibles. We open there, close there, open again, and it's just Edna's Edibles.
Closed there, and yet still Boots walks in.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Tootie's being an asshole. I'm sorry, Natalie's being an asshole to Tootie. She's alienating the entire cast. Just boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
We're to believe for a second that Natalie's working on her article for the Langley or something important, but no. She's actually forcing Tootie to do double duty, which rhymes, so that she can write program notes for the Pia Zadora Film Festival that Boots is throwing.
How long could these programming notes be?
Well, there are 4 films that Pia Zadora had been in.
At this point, had she won her Golden Globe?
I believe so, yes. Which was for Butterfly?
Yes.
Yes, that was her debut. So she won that one. And then there was 1982's Fake Out and 1983's The Lonely Lady. And then there was a TV movie in 1983 on Showtime, which was a French-inspired farce that was shot live on stage like a play.
Uh-huh.
And it was called The Pajama Tops. It was called Pajama Tops.
That sounds good.
And it starred Robert Klein and Susan George as well. And Pia Zadora played Babette Latouche.
I bet this Pajama Tops is incredibly embarrassing for everyone.
All on YouTube, the whole thing.
Oh, well, I'm going to have to check it out.
Yeah, I was thinking about watching it at some point too. I almost got sucked into it, but then I finished my notes with literally like 5 minutes before we were ready to go. So it worked out. Yeah, I hope I didn't phone him in, guys. I hope I wasn't a Natalie. I've been spending all my time at Langley in the quad, and I last minuted it. So a customer played by Lee Arnon. Maybe we can have a conversation about how to pronounce this woman's last name.
Arnon.
E. Arnone.
Arnon.
Lee Arnon. That sounds much better than whatever I said. Lee Arnon got her start as Susan in the 1982 film Naked Campus. And then she played a nurse she did this. Then she played a nurse in The Return of Marcus Welby, MD. She was Mrs. Lemsky in the 1985 Sarah Jessica Parker film Girls Just Want to Have Fun. Love that movie. Yeah. She played a nurse again in Twilight Zone in 1985. And then she played a nurse again in Second Service, a 1986 TV movie.
So,
But then she stretched her legs a bit to play stewardess in Karate Kid Part 2.
oh wow,
And then I think her greatest role
was
as
dental hygienist.
no, she was white woman in Maniac Cop. And then she was woman with kids in Hooperman. Perhaps she was a white woman with kids. We'll never know. We'll have to track down that Hooperman episode. Then she's female Marine in Feds. And that just makes me feel like you shouldn't have to specify.
Right. So wait, is this the woman that Tootie successfully helps, or is this the woman that Tootie yells at?
Tootie yells at.
Okay. So this woman is wearing, I think we should describe what she's wearing.
Well, let me just finish her. She's got 2 more roles. She played woman in Night Court. And then she played she didn't play librarian. Her last appearance wasn't in Star Trek Insurrection, where she didn't play a librarian because her scenes were cut. But she tried to play a librarian, but they were like, no.
I see. Okay.
Get her out of here. And then she was like, you know what? I'm done. I'm done.
Okay. So Natalie is basically telling Tootie to take care of everyone because she is hard at work on this programming notes situation that Boots has assigned her.
Yes,
right?
The creative juices are really flowing for this Pia Zadora program notes that she's writing so feverishly.
That's, a shocking sentence.
Yes.
Because, the only person whose creative juices were flowing about Pia Zadora was her weird ancient husband.
Yes.
So
they were flowing. He tried.
So the thing that I wanted to just call out about this woman is that she is wearing a long leather duster that looks sort of like a trench coat that's just buttoned up all the way. And she's got this, big, weird sort of blonde perm. And she milks her lines, and they're mostly, excuse me, I'm leaving. But the jacket was such an aggressive choice. Do you think she brought that herself?
No, I think she was given it. And I think somebody was like, I love this jacket. We just have to use it. She doesn't have a backstory. She could wear it. We don't know that she is not like a cleaning lady at a dominatrix house.
Fair enough. Anyway, so the other thing is that so Tootie's yelling at Natalie because she's focusing more on this Pia Zadora Film Fest program.
Yes, then she is the senior spoof, which she finds sophomoric.
And Tootie's like, yeah, that's fine. I'm a sophomore. But Natalie basically says, whatever, like, I can fart out those sketches when I sleep. And it's like, well, Natalie, you might want to lay off the bedroom cake. But also the thing is that what was I going to say about the sophomore spoof? Is that the sketches that she ends up turning in are so bad.
Yes.
They're really bad. And it's also like
everything that she turns in is really bad.
But it's such a strange thing to just not almost like that's her arc, that it's like the one thing that she really likes doing, which is writing, is that she's spreading it so thin that she can't do anything, and she's now focusing on the Pia Zadora movie program.
Which she brings up multiple times as like an excuse for why her life is falling apart. So they screech at each other in front of this poor customer until Mrs. Garrett rushes in from God knows where with an apron on, hopefully not making human bratwurst, to help the poor customer who will almost never be named for the rest of her life.
Yeah.
The customer leaves uncomfortably, saying maybe she'll come back later.
And then Mrs. Garrett basically turns around sees this woman out and then turns around the meme of the groundhog, the panicked groundhog who just turns around really quick and and she's just absolutely livid. at the fact that these two young morons have pissed away, this relationship with this customer, named white woman.
Britt, so one of the things that I think I love, and I think we've mentioned it on the podcast, is guessing what kind of thumbnails we're going to get. I just because I choose not to. I could pick one, I'm sure, but rather than learn how to do that, I like that YouTube automatically generates them, and I just feel for sure that the YouTube bot, the artificial intelligence, is going to scan through and hear that you say the scared gopher meme and then be like, all right, let me find Britt on that one. So I look forward to, yep, there you go. Oh, you definitely, now you've given it double the chance. I really hope it's that now.
Anyway, Mrs. Garrett looks at them and then starts yelling at them, being like, what the fuck is the matter with you two? And they start screaming.
Yes. Also, we get a glimpse at what Natalie was writing on her legal pad, and it looks like the drawing of like a chicken foot or something.
I didn't see.
I did, and I went back and I paused it, and it's like a giant like bird foot. Anyway, Tootie unloads all of her problems about Natalie onto Mrs. Garrett. Mrs. Garrett tries to intervene, but Natalie is too busy with the Pia shit to even listen.
Yeah.
How much effort could this take?
But also, the volume that Tootie is using in this scene is off the charts. Like, I felt like at this point, like I was like, and this is going to make me sound like a very, very old ancient crone, but I felt like the guy in the Maxell commercial where the stereo is blowing my hair back because it's so powerful. Tootie is so shrieking. And then Natalie apparently picks that up and runs with it for the rest of the episode.
Do you know who that guy is in the Maxell ad?
I don't.
Well, the initial one was Peter Murphy from Bauhaus.
Oh, well, okay.
I'm sure that the one that we see in American commercials in like the 90s was probably not him anymore, but the original one was. Blair and Joe arrive back at Edibles. What was that?
They're upset. They look like shit. They're depressed and mad.
Yes, and Blair makes a skunk reference, and Mrs. Garrett's immediately like, are they still calling you Pepe Le Pew? Which I enjoyed. And the answer is yes, thanks to Natalie being a total asshole.
Right. And that's the thing, is that so many people like there's obviously it's a phenomenon, which is basically, it's not even a phenomenon, it's just like how it's a fact of life, is that when you go to a new school or you go to a new college or you graduate high school, you get to reinvent yourself in college. And what did Natalie do? As soon as like they're 3 weeks or like a couple months into their first year of college, Natalie basically blew up their spot and was like, everyone thinks that Joe is a man and Blair smells like shit and is a slut. And it's like, we just tried to leave that shit behind and you're telling everyone about that stuff? It's like, I remember when Dominik had diarrhea in the cafeteria when in 3rd grade. It's like,
why are you telling everybody that?
But it's like diarrhea Dominik, and it's like, but
great, now the internet's gonna call me that.
Sorry, I'm the Natalie of this episode. But it's like, that's like rule 1. You don't do that to your friends.
Yeah, Joe is just like, don't even waste your lung power on Natalie. She's not worth talking to. But Blair is a walking joke now, and somehow it's due to Natalie's story. And also, which makes sense, I guess, kind of, whereas Joe almost got recruited to the men's wrestling team. And I don't know how that fits into the Natalie story. It feels like Jerry Mayer like stuck his head in the door and was like, put this one joke in. Everyone just sighed and put it in. Mrs. Garrett asked for the girls to be quiet because there are souffles in the oven.
So I understand this joke, but first of all, what kind of fucking establishment is Mrs. Garrett running? Because everyone knows, obviously, that a souffle will deflate like almost immediately after it's taken out of the oven.
Yeah.
So who are these souffles for? Why is she cooking them? Is it for them? Is it for the girls? because
That's the only guess I had.
maybe they're for her. He's like, I'm gonna have my 2 soufflés that I always have at night, and I can't let.
I make a cheese one and a chocolate one, and that's how I stay so fit.
But that's the thing, is that it's like you can make, like, just make a different food joke.
Yeah. I agree. Also, this goes nowhere. So it's like I also wrote, why are there souffles in the oven? Who needs these? You can't cater souffles. You can't sell them unless someone's dining in, but you can be loud around them and get a big laugh. Is that going to happen here? No, it does not.
I love that both of us were like, this is the thing. This is the thing that's pissing us off the most. But independently, we were both like, that's the one thing that seems inaccurate to me.
Yes, I absolutely was calling shit on that. But Boots comes in and is very loud. Nobody seems to care. She wants to know if Natalie can come out and play.
And then they do this incredibly weird air kiss hand holding thing, which was creepy. Like,
So weird.
it was like they held both hands and then air kissed. And I wrote down it was like a sort of a strange combination of both being like old people, but also like tiny, like the Shining twins, like little girls. Like, it was such a sort of like,
It was like honking air boobs.
yeah, honking air boobs. That's
It
the
was very weird.
KA of this episode.
Anyway, Boots is apparently moving from her spacious one room on the first floor to a penthouse suite. Natalie is helping her pack. Boots asked if Nat forgot something, and Nat dashes off while Boots realizes they're ticketing her Volvo, so she dashes off in the opposite direction. And when Nat returns, she's got Boots dry cleaning, which Blair immediately clocks. Oh no, Nat's a toady.
Yeah, but also she says Boots looks out the window and says, "Oh gravy, they're ticketing my Volvo. Forgivez-moi." Runs out. Natalie reemerges, comes running back in with a lot of dry cleaning, and they're like, "What the fuck's going on here?" And she's like, "It's a favor for a friend." And then Natalie says, "You really get to know someone after you've ironed their skirts." And I was like, wow, we are on lesbian joke number 2, and then followed quickly by a Volvo joke, waxing one's Volvo.
Yeah, Joe's like, what?
I was like, wow, now we're cooking with gas.
Yes. Trudy tries to tell Nat that Boots is using her, but it's to no avail. Blair says, "Better hurry because she's going to need you to wax her Volvo." Joe's like,
Yes.
Nat immediately hits back.
Hold on. Joe would never want a fully waxed Volvo.
But she wouldn't mind watching one girl wax another girl's Volvo.
That's true. But she would probably like a full bush Volvo. You know, a station wagon.
There you go.
Took me a while, but I got there eventually.
You got there. Nat's immediately hitting back, saying Blair's just jealous because Nat's been such a big hit with all of Blair's friends. Nat says, "I'm doing better at college than you are." And Mrs. Garrett's like, "Whoa, it's just one class." And then Nat takes about 20 minutes, which I appreciated because it allowed me to catch up on my notes, to explain that she talked to admissions, and if she takes some extra summer classes, keeps her grades up, she can skip her senior year. Everyone, especially Blair, looks absolutely horrified, and Bootsy honks the horn from outside. Nat grabs dry cleaning and heads off with a preppy-esque ta.
So I will say this, as shitty as Natalie is acting, the fact that so at this point no one knows, aside from the shittiness of her throwing her friends under the bus to gain new college friends and telling these secrets, whatever. Nobody knows that her academic performance has tanked. No one knows that the senior spook-a-thon, or whatever the
Senior spook was last week.
Oh,
His name was Mr. Oh my God, I can't remember his name. What's the old guy's name?
Bigley.
Mr. Bigley. Well, that was his fake name.
I don't remember that man's name. In any case, nobody knows that her academic performance is slipping. At this point, all we know is that she's been kind of shitty to her friends, her old friends, right? If she has actually managed to convince Langley to let her in a year early. The fact that her friends are acting like this is some huge betrayal is insane. Why stand in the way of her skipping a grade, having new experiences?
Here's something that you don't know, Britt. Natalie decides to not go to college.
Ah.
And this is kind of the only time she's ever gung-ho about going to college. And everybody shits on it. And Mrs. Garrett is delighted when the opportunity is taken away and she has to go one more year of high school. And all it does is prevent her from going to college. So I think it's kind of interesting with hindsight to realize that.
Well, but yeah, I mean, and I agree, but it's like, it's at this point in the episode, I actually thought that everyone was reacting poorly to Natalie's bad behavior. Like, I thought that she can be told that she was being an asshole, but I think her having the ambition to go to school early and is fine. That's a good human choice.
The only person, I mean, I get why, but like Tootie, I get would be like, no, I don't want you to leave.
Sure, but that's selfish behavior. I don't want my best friend to go.
Oh,
you live.
I could see it.
Yeah, they live together.
Yeah, it's not too big of a deal. So we're still in Edna's Edibles, and Tootie is fretting because she needs some dirt on Rose Spencer for the senior spoof.
Yes.
Apparently, this Rose Spencer is just untouchable. Nothing funny about it. Since Natalie's MIA, Tootie's got to write the whole thing herself, supposedly. Apparently, she was last sighted shining pennies for Boots loafers. Prior to that, she was getting into the German club, or trying to, because she's weirdly joining all the language clubs despite only speaking English.
So yeah, and the other thing is that, and I get that, like, you kind of can't really get at this because she is, a minor, Natalie. But I feel like this episode would have been stronger and might have been pitched differently had it been like Natalie gets into Langley to do this stuff and gets obsessed with college stuff, like smoking, drinking, partying, having sex.
I mean, we had Blair smoking 5 years ago.
Sure, but in this one, it's like, oh, she's doing extracurricular activities like joining the German and the French club and spending too much at the bookstore. No,
like dangerous activities.
Bad. She shouldn't be doing shit like that.
Yeah. So Joe and Blair, sorry?
Raise the stakes. Make it something like Natalie has a pregnancy scare, and she needs to be the one that gets the abortion.
Joe and Blair are still furious with her and find it hard to escape her. She's just absolutely everywhere. Mrs. Garrett thanks them for covering for her, and they say they don't mind the overtime. Yeah, I'm sure Blair needs the extra $13 she got this week.
No, and the other funny thing is that when sort of Joe prompts Mrs. Garrett to give them their paycheck, Mrs. Garrett goes, where it's like she kind of reminds her that it's payday, and she goes, "Correct, payday."
It wants to make it kind of like an exciting experience for the girls.
And then hands out the checks, and Natalie enters with an excuse about having coffee with her Langley friends.
Yeah, it was just like rub it in. She's of course wearing her Langley sweater just to rub it in more.
Which is, so when I was in high school, something that was very annoying that people did when they did get into college was they would wear their collegiate sweatshirt that they to be basically be like, oh, I'm going to Dartmouth, when you're 18 or 17 or whatever, or like, oh, I'm going to Cornell or Johns Hopkins or whatever. And like, that does feel like very much like a 17-year-old's thing, to proudly be wearing something that once you get to college, unless you're on, I don't know, the men's wrestling team, you're not going to be really wearing your Langley gear everywhere because it's just super dorky.
Well, Natalie's enjoying it. She apologizes for her lateness. Having coffee with Boots and Alicia and, Blair says, time flies when you're goofing off. Nat goes, oh, contraire, Warrensy. She was
Yes.
having a meaningful conversation with them. They're a sketch and a half, which is odd wording, but very convenient because it allows Tootie to say, speaking of sketches. Also, I forgot to say that Mrs. Garrett says, oh, you're just in time to switch the sign from open to closed, you fucking bitch.
Yeah.
But anyway, speaking of sketches, Nat submitted her sketches, but apparently the spoof committee, again, sounds like a great spinoff.
Spoof Committee sounds like a show I would watch today.
Yeah, where Spook Committee sounds like that show Ghosts on CBS.
Call out Ghosts on CBS. Second season coming.
Well, just got a full season today, man. Big day. Big day for us ghosties. So, basically, the Spoof Committee hated her sketches. They were just not funny enough. There were no jokes. That's offended, assuming these kids just don't get her edgy college humor. There's nothing classic, though, like the old Joe punches Blair in the face skit they did last year, I guess. She said there were no jokes at all. Yeah, like maybe they're over your head.
She goes, what jokes? Which is honestly the worst burn you could give to a comedy writer. There wasn't a single joke in that entire fucking thing you wrote. I don't know what that was. Was that your, memoir? Jesus, like it was so, I was just like, Tootie, Jesus, but she did scream it. But yeah, so then Natalie shoots back saying like, oh yeah, my collegiate humor went over your head.
And then Joe offers to kill Nat. You are correct. That did happen. That is the second death threat she has gotten from a cast member this episode.
So, but also the thing is that Natalie basically saying, oh yeah, I'm sure my collegiate humor went over your head. I believe in 1983, the number one film one would associate with collegiate humor would be Animal House, which is mostly concerned with titties, pranks, and getting wasted.
I've never seen it.
Of course you haven't.
I always assumed it would be over my head.
Yeah, because that's true. But it's a seminal film, comedic film, but it's like, I don't know what kind of like high-minded college humor Natalie is working with here.
I don't either, honestly.
What's this fucking Brecht she's writing for Tootie?
Nat refuses to punch up the jokes, so Tootie gives Joe permission to punch Natalie.
Yeah.
They argue on either side of Mrs. Garrett until she screams. This is a very, very annoying episode. But then I'm reminded about the saving grace of this episode, and that is Boots.
Yeah.
Who enters with a hidey-ho.
Yeah.
And this is where she gives, what I wrote, the most awkward two-handed handshake I've ever seen.
Because let's
do it over the Zoom.
But it's like they didn't know what they were doing. Like, are we doing this? We're gonna do the hand thing again, or are we just? I don't know what to do. Like, Azad Kalata was just like, I don't know, girls, figure something out, and they were like, one tit or two. I don't know.
I honestly think that Jamie Gertz just has all of this like motion in mind for the Boots character.
Yeah.
And Natalie was like, I think it was like an improv handshake. Like, I think Boots was just doing her high, and Natalie was like, oh, we're going to handshake? And then they connected, and she's like, okay, this is what we're doing now. It was so off and weird. I loved everything about it.
Yeah.
I watched that part twice, too. And then also the fact that they both gave each other hidey-hos.
Yeah, but it also, like, the fact that it was like this, the first one I, like, kind of bought, like, where they held hands, or groped one of those breasts and like did like those weird prolonged air kisses. Like, I kind of understood that as a strange performance art, but this was sort of long and held slightly too long, and they didn't recut. Like, they didn't cut away, and it made me. This in particular reminded me of this scene in 30 Rock, where Jack Donaghy. Is that right? Donaghy. Whatever, the head of GE and NBC. So Alec Baldwin is shooting a commercial for NBC and for GE in 30 Rock, and he can't act natural on camera at all. It's just it's impossible. So he's like, maybe if I held a coffee cup, that feels good. And he can't even do that. And then he's like, but maybe can I have 2 coffee cups? This feels natural. This feels very natural to me. This feels good. And it's just all this weird, awkward hand physical comedy. That's what this reminded me of.
I'm on board for that. Joe complains they should have locked the door.
Yeah, just what we get when we don't lock the door.
And
That to me, there was a Bronx like mugging joke in that. Like, this is what we get. We get people like this. We get thieves. We get evil people coming in all the time when you don't lock the door.
Boots explains that she assumed the clothes sign didn't pertain to her.
Mm-hmm.
And Mrs. Garrett makes a face that looks like she sat on a carrot.
Yes.
Which I sent you. It was like, Boots is there for half a smidge of Mrs. Garrett's lovely duckling pate.
Marvelous duckling pate. This is the most horrific thing.
Oh, I was right. It was duckling pate?
Have ever heard. Because
that was my only guess. I'm relieved I got it, and that it wasn't some kind of racist dog whistle that I missed.
No, it's the fact that the double bobs or Jamie Gertz misspoke, but it's a horrible notion to even think of making food out of ducklings because they're baby birds, but also, does nobody know what pate is made out of? It's made out of duck liver or goose liver, and they've been fattened. So they're fully adult. You don't want to eat duckling pate because their livers are like the size of a stamp.
You need like so many dead ducks.
You need so many dead baby ducks.
Just to make that half a smidge. And it costs $4.
And that's what Mrs. Garrett is making? These fucking insane souffles and then duckling pate? What is she, Freddy Krueger? Jesus Christ.
Little ducks running around the bedroom.
And then
I can't believe I was right.
Mrs. Garrett's like, okay, get the cleaver, girls.
She would love a half a smidge of Mrs. Garrett's lovely marvelous duckling pate. Doesn't want them reopening the books for her because she knows how tradespeople dislike doing that.
And Mrs. Garrett at that point,
I love Boots so much.
As soon as she called Mrs. Garrett a tradesperson, I thought Mrs. Garrett was going to light her on fire. She looked so mad.
Yes, she did look angry, but she composed herself. She knows Boots is an important customer, and so she says, yes, we only sell it by the whole smidge, which Boots says that's fine. She just has to do an extra round of backgammon to put it up. I laughed so much at Boots on this show. Seriously, everything that she says is funny.
I mean, the delivery is funny, but it's also just like, it's one of those things. It's like, do you know how words work? Like,
I mean, I thought that was a really funny thing to imagine, that backgammon is her way of exercising.
But also, how energetic are these backgammon games that she's playing?
She said she was going to do an extra hard round of it.
I mean, enough to burn off baby duck foie gras?
A smidge worth, yeah.
But it's a whole smidge.
Yeah, I said a smidge worth. I didn't say a half a smidge worth.
Right.
Did you know that there's a Gucci backgammon set?
I mean, that doesn't surprise me at all.
How much do you think it would go for?
$1,200.
$4,000.
Well, at least I was in the thousands.
Yeah. I am certain Boots has 2 of them. Anyway,
a winter backgammon set and a summer backgammon set.
Yeah. Well, because if you're gonna play it overseas, you have to play it the opposite way.
No, that's when you go to Australia.
Oh, then you have to just flip your pieces upside down, I thought.
Oh, no, that's how when you put the pieces in the toilet, they go the wrong way around.
Oh, I didn't know that they do toilet rules in Australia.
Yeah, they've only adopted the toilet rules in like the last, I would say, decade. So it's fine.
Detroit was so innovative in inventing them. So Tootie mocks Boots silently as she walks past the camera. It is beautiful. I love this moment.
It was a lot of shade. A lot of shade.
A lot of shade. So Tootie was basically inventing shade. Tootie, this is the main reason for Boots' entree is to deliver an early copy of the Langlian, which has Natalie's story in it. Sort
Yeah.
of. It has been re-edited, and Natalie does not like being edited.
So I was like, Natalie is a writer. This is a college newspaper. She herself is an editor. This is an insane, like, affront to her.
She's horrified by this. No one reworks me. I'm an editor. Boots pinches Nat's chin and is like, "You're the editor of a high school paper." And then she goes, "Viva la différence."
Yeah.
And Nat's like, "What the fuck's that supposed to mean?" And then Joe goes, "You're in the French club. Figure it out." Boom.
Yeah.
That was pretty good.
Joe was waiting. She was like, I had that. She had that one on deck.
Yeah, she was really happy with it.
She's the one who brought up the fact that Natalie was joining these, language clubs for no reason. Yeah. And so she was just like, let me think of some insults in case I need them.
Mm-hmm. And
she was ready. Perfect one, and she just knocked it out of the park.
Out of the park. Snap shouts, "I wrote some good stuff." And then Boots counters with, "Well, maybe then you should have turned that in." And then they cut to Tootie, who was like, "Damn, that was cold." Like, literally, like, okay, Shade 101. I just learned something today. She was really impressed with that. I mean, she was like, good job.
And that's the thing, is that, I mean, the great thing about that is that Boots is ostensibly insulting Tootie's best friend.
Yeah.
And Tootie is mad enough at Natalie, that she's like, thank you for saying something as cold and brutal as that to this person who I used to love, who now sucks. Like, it was, but it was delivered in such a, like, well, maybe you should have given that. And it's like, I've been trying to say that to her about the spoof.
Oh, you're really in spooky season, huh?
Senior spoof night. But it was like, she's like, I've been trying to get Natalie to understand the shit that she's written was bad. And then Boots,
Mr. Lazzaroni.
And then Boots comes in and it's like, yeah, I don't know what to say. This shit was bad. So we had to rework all of your copy.
It was cold. It was great. It shows that Boots can really crush being evil. And Mrs. Garrett hands Boot her smidge of duckling pate, $4 worth, which is the equivalent of $11 today. Decently priced smidge. Boots
also, let me just say this. She hands it to her in a weird, gross, transparent plastic bag.
Yeah, it's just like, here's your smidge.
It looked like she was giving her like a carnival goldfish. It was so weird. It was just like, here. But in a bag, like, just wrap it up like a brown paper, like normal.
Make it normal. That's not the rule here. Boots had the $4 already, which I thought was weird, because how'd she know the price of a smidge was going to be $4? She's just like, here you go, and it's on the dot. Interesting. Hands it over, announces that her knee socks are starting to bag, so it's time to go. Gives a double Pac-Man and goes whoosh.
Yeah, she must whoosh.
Do you think they wrote whoosh? Or do you think she improvised whoosh?
I hope not. I hope it was her.
I hope it was her too.
All her.
Honestly, if I ever get the chance to meet her, and bear in mind she was the star of two of my favorite shows ever, in every episode. I think the first question I would ask her was, "Did you invent whoosh?"
Be like, I have no idea what the fuck you're talking about.
FYI, it is a notable quote from this episode and the only one.
True.
No, I'm saying that to her. I know you know. Anyway, so Natalie whines about everything's going wrong for her. What could happen next? And Mrs. Garrett, is like, "Yo, here's your check. Enjoy that. Kick you while you're down." It is for $18. Nat's like, "Has it been edited too?"
Yeah, because bitch hasn't been showing up for work.
Yeah, that's pissed. She doesn't understand how she could not get paid for all those hours that she didn't work.
I don't understand. What is this, a charity?
This is just like Star Trek all over again, says Alnone, Lee Alnone. What? Alnon? Anyway. Arnon. There we go. Apparently, Natalie missed 9 of her 16 hours last week, so we're saying 7 hours nets her $18. I hope not.
Is it $2? I don't know what minimum wage was in 1983, but it's
that's a good question for the Google.
It wasn't $2.
All right, let's just find out here. Minimum wage 1983. See if Google can tell me that. And in the meantime, let's see here. $3.35. Okay.
Okay. I mean,
you got to think about FICA. Sure, $18. Jeez, that's bad.
Anyway, so as soon as Natalie gets this tiny check, Mrs. Garrett disappears into the living room, and Natalie chases after her.
She's like, "Well, I couldn't have worked because I had my language clubs and my shitty article and my unfunny spoofs and my Pia Zadora Film Festival." And Mrs. Garrett's like, "Go fuck yourself."
Yeah, Mrs. Garrett's like, okay. Yeah, all those important things you're doing.
That have nothing to do with me, that I'm not going to be paying you for.
Exactly.
And we learned that Nat is stressed about this week's paycheck because she got her bill from the Langley bookstore and the charge card that she opened is due. Like, I cannot figure out time in this episode.
Also, the other thing is that, so also I like the fact that she has not only that they went with the joke, which is basically an American Express joke, but that Langley College has a charge card that's associated with their bookstore. They just don't have you charge your books to your account for when you go there, or, you pay for them.
It's a way to help kids learn how to manage their money.
Anyway, so then Natalie says, so she's like, "Well, I'm really worried about my Langley bookstore charge card bill." And then Mrs. Garrett's like, "You opened the charge card?" And she's like,
"Yeah, I don't leave home without it." Isn't that hilarious?
Well, so that's the American Express slogan that was created by David Ogilvy. Shout out Ogilvy, where I used to work, in 1975. And it's like, it's such a sort of non-joke that they kept in, for no reason. She could have just said, I worried about paying off my Langley bookstore bill.
Yeah, I agree. It was really lame. I named my cat Amex because I never wanted to leave home without her.
True, and you didn't. You mostly took her with you everywhere.
I did. So the doorbell rings, and all dialogue is halted while Charlotte Rae takes her sweet ass time sauntering to the door for like a whole minute, waiting for it, and then it's Mr. Parker. And he sees Natalie and his face just drops. He's like, "Oh, hello, Natalie." He also does not care for her. But Natalie doesn't pick up on this, gives Mr. Parker a hidey-ho.
I know.
So first things first, and this is honestly probably my favorite part of the episode. It's very subtle, though. I think almost anyone would miss it. Provost McGovern's at Bates Provost McGovern at Bates's anniversary is the same day as Mr. Parker's wife's birthday, and we all know that is a major holiday in Peekskill. So he wants to make sure that prick, Provost McGovern, doesn't steal away Mrs. Garrett because since he said she's no longer his exclusive property.
Yeah. He says, "You're my exclusive property." I wrote down, who the fuck talks like this? Mr. Parker should be in jail.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, who is Provost McGovern? And why is that the greatest name I've ever heard? And why did it get wasted on a guy we're never going to see?
Because it's facts of life.
I Googled it. Nobody's ever been named Provost McGovern in the history of the world. And it's so good.
Because Provost is a title like Doctor or Darth.
Oh.
It's not a first name.
Well, then I'm stupid and disappointed. Like Darth. So
Yeah.
What is the position of Provost?
Basically headmaster in some sort of capacity of that sort.
Oh, okay. Why not say headmaster?
I
That's
think
what Mr. Parker is.
because I think headmaster might imply like younger kids. Provost, I think, yeah, if you just looked up 1983 minimum wage, look up what a provost is.
I am a senior administrative officer at certain colleges or universities. Way to go, Britt.
You're welcome. I didn't even need the Google machine for that one.
And look how foolish I am. I feel like a total non-provost. All right. So, So he says he's worried about Mr. McGovern with the boring name, trying to steal Mrs. Garrett from him. That's now that he's no longer his exclusive property. He stopped by just to make sure she knows she still is his exclusive property.
He's like, really? We're gonna keep doing this? Okay, I can make I'll cater your wife's birthday. And he's like, thank God. Well, she's like, no, fuck off. Basically,
she does say that her one regret in life is that she can only cater his wife's birthday but once a year. And he's like, really?
And she's like, no, but go, like, fine, whatever, go away.
Second thing on Mr. Parker's agenda is Natalie. She drops a quick because she knows this is not going to be good news. She sucked so much that they're not letting her go to school anymore. Either school. She's done.
Well, so not only has her GPA tanked.
Yes. Her spoof work, terrible.
The spoof work is bad, but also the important thing about Eastland, she's been cutting class.
Yes, and that is actually a problem.
And Mrs. Garrett's like, what?
That is the final straw for Mrs. Garrett.
She sounds like Spoopy. Anyway, but Langley then told Mr. Parker that they've rescinded the early admissions offer. And Natalie's like, what the fuck? This is crazy. Can I keep finishing the class that I'm currently in? And he's like, well, I guess that was based on, your old performance. So maybe. And it's like, why are we even talking about this?
Even Langley is over Natalie and her bullshit. Yeah, she's no longer an exceptional student. I'm kind of curious over how long of a period of time this episode takes place that she was able to not be a good student anymore.
The other thing is that Natalie is basically like, and this is going to make me sound judgmental and shitty, which is what I always sound like on this podcast. But Natalie, as I said earlier about the sweatshirt thing, the Langley sweatshirt on campus, it's like wearing the band's t-shirt to the concert. Like, don't do that. She was sort of just showing off this cred that she actually pissed away, by not going to class and not, doing a good job at anything.
Yeah, sure. Mr. Parker reminds her he's still headmaster. He can make life hard for girls who cut classes.
Again, that's Harvey Weinstein level behavior.
Yeah, it made me very uncomfortable. And she gives a very sad yes, Mr. Parker.
Yeah.
Mrs. Garrett walks him to the door and he once more begs her to come back to Eastland so he can have more scenes, I guess. He brags about their new ice trays they got.
I thought, what is happening here? She had an industrial kitchen as well at an educational institution. They had an ice machine. They are not working with ice cube trays.
Yeah, for the several thousand. Oh, good. Good. New ice cube trays. That'll make life a lot easier. Well, she's obviously doing a bang up job raising these teenagers. They're not having any problems at all. So she's going to stay put. And he ominously says, we'll talk about it next week. And if they do, we do not see it because Mr. Parker is gone forever. Goodbye, Mr. Parker. Goodbye, Roger Perry. Goodbye, Mrs. Parker's birthday.
And then, so we see goodbye, Mr. Parker. Mrs. Garrett closes the door, and we see another
oh man,
dramatic.
are tempting the gods. Mrs. Garrett is pissed at Natalie, but Natalie
mad at that.
So-
And Natalie, at this point, her Natalie starts like basically pleading with Mrs. Garrett and starts
to lie. She's like, I've got a plan. All you have to do is throw all your dignity out the window.
Yeah. So, which, at this point, Mrs. Garrett has already lied to protect Blair and Joe and Tootie and Natalie at the Gamma Gamma house because she lied about the food that they made.
That's true, but she was protecting herself as well.
True. But I will say that, you asking me to lie? No. Anyway, at this point, when Natalie is trying to bargain with Mrs. Garrett, she says like all these things. She's like, I've got a plan. Like, she's like, I want you to write a letter saying, to Langley saying, I've been working so hard here in the shop. I've had health issues. My parents are dying. I've had to amputate my foot. Like, she's just like making all this shit up.
Choked on some bedroom cake.
Yeah. Anyway, the pitch at which she delivers this speech was so high pitched and loud that it scared my cats. They were fully asleep, and then they did a gopher. Like, what is happening? Like, and it's so annoying that like that's the modulation. It's like we're kind of okay, and then when we need to do dramatic acting, we go to like that's what is that?
They're learning.
This is season 5, Dominik.
Some of them are learning faster than others. Mrs. Garrett gives a firm no, she's not going to lie for Natalie. Natalie is just not ready for college. Also, college is not ready for her. And truth be told, this is the closest Natalie will ever get to going to college. So I think Mrs. Garrett kind of dropped the ball here by not lying. But, hindsight is 20/20. Nat asks Mrs. Garrett to put herself in Natalie's place. And Mrs. Garrett does for a second. And it's kind of fucked up. She's like, all right, I'll do that. Let's see. I've been a horrible person. Everybody I know hates me. My parents are going to go through the roof when they find out that I have dropped out of college and I'm get on my cheap. Just absolutely making Natalie feel totally horrible. And then she stops herself and she's like, you know what? I don't want to be in your place anymore. No advice.
No.
Just being an asshole.
So, and also before she launches into this horrible laundry list of all of Natalie's sins, which are all true.
Yes.
She did rack up this giant bookstore debt that she can now not pay off.
Mm-hmm.
Her grades are in the toilet. She can't write a sketch if it, she can't do anything at this point.
Her SNL audition packet sucks.
Yes. Mrs. Garrett goes,
Face it! You blew it!
and that's so funny because that's also just a very mean thing to say to someone who is, really trying in a crisis, who's sort of scrambling to like all the chaos that they are now confronted with. But it also is the funniest thing because it reminds me of this low-key famous scene from the movie Copland, which if you haven't seen Animal House, I doubt that you've seen Copland.
I haven't.
It's a James Mangold film about corrupt cops that has De Niro in it and Sly Stallone. Anyway, there's a scene where Robert De Niro works, I believe he works for Internal Affairs. And so he's investigating these corrupt cops who might have covered up a murder. Spoiler alert, they did. But, he goes to Sly Stallone, who's this sort of like very kind local sheriff of, some northern New Jersey town, like Englewood, like Tenafly, whatever. Very sleepy. Basically, it's like he hands out a lot of speeding tickets. But anyway, he's kind of the crucial like nugget in terms of knowing like where the corruption is. But Sly Stallone is a very good man, but has reservations as to whether or not he should say anything because, the corrupt cops are like his best friends and his brothers and whatever. Anyway, so after mulling it over for like a couple weeks, Sly Stallone goes into the big bad city, goes down to like City Hall to go see, De Niro in Internal Affairs, who is in the midst of eating his shitty lunch from like the local deli in Wall Street or whatever. And Sly Stallone comes in like hat in hand being like, so I want to talk a little about like, what's going on in my community. And Robert De Niro has a full mouth of like turkey, mustard, mayo, lettuce. It's just flying. He's like, you blew it. You blew it. You should have come 2 weeks ago. You blew it. And I was, as soon as Garrett said that, I was like, that's De Niro. Did De Niro watch this in Copland? Maybe.
I'm certain. Do we know if the Bobs wrote Copland? I guess I know, and they didn't. So Nat asked Mrs. Garrett if she thinks the girls hate her as much as Natalie does. And Mrs. Garrett's like, yeah, I do.
She goes, right now? Yes. They all hate you.
She's like, Mrs. Garrett is not trying to offer an iota of comfort to Natalie in this moment. It's very weird. Nat tries to think on the bright side. She's trying because Mrs. Garrett will not help her do it. And she's like, well, at least if I'm not talking to the girls, then I don't have to tell them about all this personal tragedy I'm experiencing. And Mrs. Garrett's like, they're going to notice because you're going to walk around with your tail between your legs and not like a big asshole like you've been doing. And Natalie's like, God damn it, Mrs. Garrett.
Yeah.
Give me something.
No, and
like,
then,
fine, I'll tell them at dinner. And then Mrs. Garrett's like,
well,
like, fine, I'll tell them now. Jesus.
And then she turns around, and Tootie's there being like, tell us what?
Yep.
She's like, it's like, I learned from the shade store herself, Boots. Tell us what, Natalie?
And Natalie, weak-ass performance here, tries to go with sympathy as hard as she can. Tears in her eyes. She starts with an, oh, Tootie. And then she just relays the entire episode's plot, which had been relayed twice already in this scene. So this is the third time in this scene that we're hearing about all of the things that Natalie has done wrong. And at this point,
and she says, so this is the third time, but basically this is Natalie grasping at straws in true desperation. She's like, I can't rely on all the stuff that on Boots because she sold me out to this, to the college editor.
Yeah. She's like, I just need friends. Will you be my friend in this time of need, Tootie? And Tootie, the mouth full of metal. I've never seen her smile so wide. And she's just like, don't hold your breath, bozo.
I thought she said fat chance, bozo.
I have don't hold your breath.
Oh, well.
And then this is the very weird directing choice where Tootie shouts into the store to the others that Nat bombed out, y'all. Isn't that hilarious? And then they all just start piling on. And then Nat says Blair has the sensitivity of a skunk, walking right into that one so that Blair can go, well, they don't call me Pepe Le Pew for nothing. But this whole time we're with Mrs. Garrett sitting on the couch, just smiling ear to ear, like, oh yeah, you girls rip each other to shreds. That is how I derive my power. I am loving this. Soak up all of that discourse, and we're done. That's our episode.
Mrs. Garrett in that last scene was cackling. Well, she was smiling and looking overjoyed like a evil prison guard.
Yes. Yeah, she like it was this weird sick window into her mind where she's like, yes, they all hate each other forever. I love it.
They're fighting. They're fighting. Yes.
I should make some more souffles for myself.
I'm gonna make some popcorn and watch them.
Well, anyway, that's our episode. What'd you think, Britt?
I mean, it made me miss a Mrs. Garrett focused one because I want to see this sass from her again.
Well, this next episode that we got coming up is also a fan favorite. It's Mrs. Garrett's birthday.
Oh.
And some of the girls have a surprise planned for her.
Oh, great. Is it sending her to jail again?
It could be.
Is it shoplifting another horrible shirt so that she gets blamed and has to go to prison?
It's called a surprise because I'm not telling you what it is.
Okay.
But I'm very excited to watch it with you. I wish I could just come over and watch it with you. But yes, I'm looking forward to next week, and I imagine the lovelies are as well. And so until then, I have no final thoughts. How about you?
Fuck Mr. Parker.
Fuck Mr. Parker. Done. All right. We will see each other next time. Stay cool, my lovelies. Stay cool.